Ready?
Oh, hey, we're recording. It's whenever you want to go.
Hello, Servos. Visike.
Actually, not terrible.
Welcome back to He Has a Bird.
It's
I am not the host.
You know what?
What is it?
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. I shouldn't be correcting you. You have your own way to do it. So please start
No,
from the
we're
top.
going to start over. No, we're
Yeah,
going to start over.
start from the top. I won't say anything.
What's the podcast called? He Has a Bird or He Has
Yeah.
the Bird?
No, he has a bird, but it's usually welcome back to the podcast. He has a bird, but you do it your own way.
What's wrong with the podcast?
Nothing. You just didn't say
Welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah, you didn't say that.
3, 2, 1. Action. Hello, Servos. Visike. Welcome back to He Has a Bird. It is the podcast called Captain the Captain. I am not your host, Patrick Shelton. Joining me today on the podcast is the host, Sean Shelton. And today, we're going to talk about life and leadership lessons for business, military, and athletic professionals. Welcome. Sean, how are you today?
I look great, but why do you look like an absolute psychopath?
I'm focused.
Yes, you are. You did a great job. Your Grisseich was surprised.
I don't want to host the show anymore.
No,
you can have it back.
No, your Grisseich was surprisingly good, actually.
I actually have coronavirus, so I'm a little phlegmy.
Don't say that.
Yeah, I can't say that.
He doesn't have it. No, you're still hosting, so I am thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me on my own show, and I'm excited to have a nice conversation with you.
Okay, so we have talked about various topics from leadership and culture and winning and mindset and all this other stuff. So today I think is a little bit more of a elaborate discussion. I think one that I've kind of had to prepare for a little bit more than we normally do, and it's how do you develop a winning mindset? And how do you build a winning mindset and winning culture for those around you? And so I've a couple things that I'll talk about from my standpoint is going to be what are your goals, what are your priorities, and what's your vision? And so, Sean, I'll start with you, but it seems to me like what's always the goal in a football
game? To win football games.
Yeah. But what's always the goal? Like you're on an NFL team. What's always the goal? What's the thing that you guys always talk about?
Winning championship.
Winning a championship, right? Every NFL team, they always say, "Hey, we're here to win a Super Bowl," right? Now, if you are the Detroit Lions and you say you want to win a Super Bowl at the beginning of the year, it's probably not going to happen. But everybody says it, right?
Yeah.
Can I say that? Can I talk about, is Detroit Lions copyrighted? Can I say that?
I think you could say Detroit Lions.
I'm not sure.
I don't think that's an issue.
I just don't want to get fined.
Well, I mean, you need to refresh on your podcast law, but I think it's okay.
Okay. All right.
But no, you're probably right. It's not necessarily a realistic goal.
And so when you're talking about goal setting, Sean, on the team that you and so when I said that I wanted to be the host of this, I was joking with it when I said it, but I was also serious in the sense that I wanted me to interview or talk to you because it's mostly you doing, we have a conversation with mostly you asking me questions.
Correct.
But I wanted it to be you because people are more drawn to you, I think, than they are naturally drawn to you than they are to me.
Okay.
The positions that I've been in, the leadership positions that you started from being whether you realized it or not, you were influential as a freshman quarterback on the varsity football team, right? Like people looked to you, people were drawn to you, and that kind of just set up the whole culture for why you guys were successful, your senior year, right? And then even at school, coming in you were starting right from the beginning, and you people were just naturally drawn to you. You're naturally athletic, you're naturally talented. People were a little bit more drawn to you in that regard. Whereas me, the presence and the leadership and all that stuff, like I've always had to establish over time. I always came in and I was always like the young freshman that nobody knew anything about or whatever, and I had to like, not that you didn't have to earn it every day, but I had to earn it every day, and like I had to grow into that role. So that's why I want to talk to you. So when you're looking at goals, right? Obviously for your team, every year it's we want to win a championship.
Right.
Talk about some intermediate goals that you guys may set, on the way there.
I mean, I think for us, obviously the end goal is always to win the championship at the end of the year, and there's several milestones between those events. There's always important games, and even international championships. That's the weird thing. There's championships within a championship season, if you will. But I think we've done a really good job at the Raiders of incrementalizing a season and really taking it a game at a time, and taking chunks out of that apple, if you will, a bite at a time, and a bite at a time, and a bite at a time. And I would say the intermediate goals to the end goal is to win every football game we play. And we were able to achieve that last year, but oftentimes that's not a realistic goal either. But it's the approach that we take in order to get to the point where we can achieve our main goal.
Well, within that, I mean, I think you could break it down even further if you're looking at a game. For example, so like when I was in college, right? I was playing defense. Obviously, yes, the goal is to win the champion. We want to win. We wanted to win the KCAC, right? And then we wanted to win every game,
right?
Every game that we played, right? But like in the NFL, like it's happened one time, two times, or whatever.
Right.
But I remember one thing that our defensive coordinator used to always say is he always used to say, we want 3 turnovers in a game. Mm-hmm. That was the goal. Mm-hmm. 3 turnovers in the game. Something that greatly increased our chances of winning. Because I think it's like if you can get three turnovers in the game, you're 83% more likely to win the game or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, I want 3 turnovers in a game. Or they may say, hey, you may say, hey, like for us to be successful, we need to gain at least 100 yards rushing. Something along those lines. And that was just something that he did on a regular basis for all 4 years I was there. 3 turnovers in a game, and then no personal fouls.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. And by and large, we had a fairly successful defense during the time that we were there. So I don't know if you guys.
No, we have
like that.
No, we have stuff like that. But they're all pretty generic. We want to get 4+ more yards on first down. We want to get in second and manageable as an offense. We want to be 60% on third downs. We want to score points on every single drive. We want to have 0 turnovers. We don't want to punt, to be honest.
Yeah.
We want 70% completion percentage. We want 5+ yards per carry. So we have those mile markers as well. It kind of indicates how efficient we are operating as an offense.
Yeah, and too, with those, for looking at it from an Army perspective, my overarching goal, we can't say, like at the end of the day, like for the Army, like, yeah, we want to win every war that we're in, but like that's not one that really resonates with, like that's much different than your goal, but one of the goals that I set for my own organization is, hey, I want to be the most reliable organization on like in the Army,
Mm-hmm.
right? I want to be the most reliable. Like, is there a way to measure that? Absolutely not. But I want the people that are above me, that are above this organization, and that are below this organization. I want them to know that my organization, of people as a whole, is reliable.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can set some intermediate goals like, hey, we got to be good on our, um, you know, well, so I'll say this. It'll take us into the next topic. What are your priorities to meet those goals?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like so for example, I focus on three things when you're trying to meet that goal. I focus very heavily on the culture. I focus very heavily on maintaining my equipment, and I focus very heavily on um, leaders being leaders. Right? Obviously, in the military, there's a hierarchy of leadership, but just because I am a commander, right? That doesn't always by default mean that I'm a leader.
Right.
It means I'm in a position of leadership, but it doesn't mean that I'm a leader.
Correct.
But I think from the top to the bottom, if we can get, and this is like how it would be on a football team too. Yeah, you may be the team captain, right? You need leaders all the way down to the second and third team offensive linemen.
Mm-hmm.
Because that third team linebacker or whatever, people may just see him working hard every day. He knows he's not going to get in the game. I had a guy like this in college. Everybody knew that he wasn't going to get in the game. He was on scout. But every day he showed up to the weight room, did his weights, and he came out there and he did the scout team as hard as he possibly could. That guy's a leader. Mm-hmm. He may not be the captain of the football team, but that guy's a leader. And a lot of guys rallied around. But those are the big three things that I try to focus on that help to be the most reliable organization in the Army. But what are some priorities like going into a season or some things that you guys develop throughout the year that help you achieve those goals?
Yeah, I think we've already touched on one of them, and one of the notes I had was back to our first episode when we talked about consistency. And that also ties into the culture of the team, which is kind of actually funny. The exact timeline of these, or at least theme timelines of this captain to captain series, and all of that ties into what we're talking about now. And we demand a lot of our amateur football players, and we demand a lot out of practice in terms of time and intensity and execution during practice. And, I may not have been the most hardworking person in the weight room. I might have not have been the most hardworking person in terms of, speed training or whatever in the off season. But practice is always something I've taken very, very seriously. And the level of execution during practice, knowing what your assignment is crucial. And I think as an offense, we've grown a lot because not knowing what you're doing is inexcusable in all levels, from a teammate and from coaching level. And not being able to execute in practice is also inexcusable. And we don't waste reps, and we don't let shit just go in practice. If it doesn't work, or if it didn't hit right, or somebody didn't know what they're doing, it's addressed immediately. And that's something I take very, very seriously for myself and for my teammates. And I think because of this expectation of consistency and high level of performance whenever you're on the field, in whatever aspect, it could be the first camp of the year, and I'll be pissed if something in the basic install is not functioning right. It just bothers the shit out of me, and I can't let it go. And if I'm a perfectionist in any way, shape, or form, it's execution in practice and in games. And I think via that commitment to consistent performance, we've built a really high level of a performance day in and day out. And in games, over the course of the last two seasons, it's rare when we punt. For the last two seasons, we've had single-digit punts.
Do you even have a punter?
We have a punter, but he's not used often. It's just not something that happens to us very often. We move the ball and we score points, and that's the expectation of ourselves. it's just a cultural thing. And when you go into a game with a mindset like that and the expectation like that, typically good things are going to happen. And I only speak about the offense because that's really the only influence that I have on the team. But from building a culture or building a mindset of an offensive unit, in my eyes, that's a pillar of our success, is how we practice and the expectations of ourselves every time we step on the field.
Yeah, and so that's that's that I think what you just said there that kind of encompasses a large majority of the conversations
Mm-hmm.
That we've had, and it feeds kind of into my next topic, and it's what's the vision for your team? Like who is it? Because I think people need something that they can get behind. And you
Mm-hmm.
hear a lot of NFL teams say like, "Hey, we're gonna be known for, I mean, we're gonna be known for running the football. We're gonna be known for high-powered offense. We're just gonna be known as being a physical football team." You know what I mean? Like, whatever it may be. And some teams, I'm gonna pull this thing up on my computer right now, but I want to read you. Um, what the mission statement is for my organization. And some people have some people want to do maybe it's just a slogan, or maybe it's maybe it's a mission statement, maybe it's a vision statement, or whatever. Some people think they're kind of cheesy, but I have this on a lot of my briefing slides, and it's just something that I read, and it's kind of like an azimuth check for me. Like, hey, am I really, me being at the top of my organization, are my goals and my priorities, are they supporting my vision?
Yep.
For what it is for the company. So, the visions, I call it a vision statement. We call it a mission statement, whatever. It says, the soldiers are highly trained, deadly individuals, and professional war fighters. They are a team of teams of fam. They are a team of teams, a family. They are leaders, and that's just that's my check on, hey, am I training these guys to be professional war fighters? Am I training these guys to be a team? And is this organization a family? And are we raising up leaders? At least in my organization, I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave shortly. I'm going to move on. I'm going to go do something else. And two, this is something that being the captain of the football team, or somebody in my position, you have to. Sometimes it's hard to take a really, really honest assessment. And so, just as I look at this right now, it's hey, I haven't done as good of a job lately in developing leaders like to take my spot. I've taught them more about being able to run like an organization, right? But not so much about leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, like there's a difference. Like the quarterback, you can be a great game manager, but if you're not a leader and not somebody that anybody wants to follow, I don't think that there's any point. Like great, you're a good game manager. Like, okay, cool.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I don't know if it.
Well,
I don't know if you can talk on that.
No, something you said that's intriguing to me. I've kind of have two thoughts. One, I'm very curious. In your mission statement, it ends with "they are leaders," right? I'm very curious to hear how you define leadership, which is almost an impossible question to ask. So I apologize for that.
But I have an answer.
Okay, because you explained the scout team player of your team and how he was a grinder and he never stepped on the field, but he was somebody that people looked up to in terms of work ethic. He's a leader, right? And you mentioned me being somebody as a young person, and having much older people gravitate towards me and kind of look to me for performance or whatever the case may be, which are two very, very different scenarios. And then you talk to me, we talked about me as in the quarterback of the Saukville Raiders 2-0 today, who is also a very different person in a very different role. And all three can be argued as leaders. So I'm very curious on how you define leadership and what is the essence of a leader.
Yeah, so there's a ton of different um, definitions out there. You know, there's what you get in the dictionary. There's army manuals that define what leadership is. There's YouTube videos. You Google the word leadership, and I'm sure Urban Dictionary has a freaking definition of leadership. But what I go off of, and I have it posted here on my wall, but it's a quote from General Dwight D. Eisenhower, you know, who later went on to become President Eisenhower, who was the Allied commander during World War II for the U.S. troops over in Europe. One of the last 5-star generals that the United States has ever seen. But he said, and I'm particular to Dwight D. Eisenhower because I lived in Abilene where he grew up, and I saw this quote at his presidential museum next to his boyhood home, and it said, leadership is the art of getting someone to do something that you want done because they want to do it. And I felt like that statement encompassed like everything that I ever thought that leadership was. Mm-hmm. And honestly, on the way to work this morning, I was thinking about it, not even in relation to I just was thinking about it. Leadership is the art of getting someone else to do something that you want done because they want to do it.
No, I completely agree with you. That is a phenomenal definition. And when I kind of think about,
it covers all three people that you were just talking about.
Here's the thing though. It probably covers your teammate in college and it probably covers me now. But when I kind of reflect on who I am or my leadership journey, if you will, I feel like I haven't really become a leader, at least in the capacity of my potential as a leader until 2 years ago. I think of myself as a 14-year-old kid just trying to keep his head above water, playing in a team that he probably shouldn't have been playing on. And I was gravitated towards because people seem to like my personality, but also I have talent, right? Like not only talent in playing, I was talented for my age, but I also had a talent with people, right? And people just, like you said, it's not the first time I've been told people gravitate towards me. But was I actually positively influencing the team to achieve a common goal? Like I wanted it, and via me wanting it and being passionate about it and being talented about it, did it influence other people? Most likely. So to say I wasn't a leader might not be the right scenario. But I had the talent, right? And I had the passion. And then it's like, okay, well, what's the next step in my leadership? Where did I grow as a leader? And then it goes back to, I think, consistency. I wasn't the hardest working kid ever, first of all, but as a 14-year-old, I worked probably harder at 14 than I did 15 and 16. But did I show up to work every day demanding greatness out of myself and others? No, I don't think so. Maybe as a senior, and maybe that's why we played better. But I think that came from Coach Mark Hay, believe it or not, more than probably me. And did I do that in college? Maybe. I worked pretty hard in college. And so maybe that consistency step where it's like, okay, not only is he talented on the field and off the field, he shows up and works every day. And he is that consistency. I trust this guy. I trust this guy to get the job done when need be. And so, maybe that's step 2 of a leader. And I did that for most of my career. That's really where probably my sweet spot as a leader has been. But I remember 2 years ago, an employee of the Raiders had an idea, send me to a sports psychiatrist, which was interesting to me at the time, but honestly, probably the best thing that's ever happened to me professionally. And I remember sitting down to this guy, Tom. I remember just like, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to talk. And I remember telling him about a situation that I was having professionally and how I was going about it. And he looked me in the eye and goes, Sean, that's bullshit. Like, everything you're telling me right now is absolute bullshit. And I was like, okay. And he's like, do you call yourself a leader? I said, sure. Yeah. He's like, well, how could this be going on? And how could you be acting in this way? And you think to call yourself a leader? And basically what he was alluding to is I was being too passive at times. You know, I was being consistent and I was being passionate, but I really wasn't being confrontational. When I saw things that were counterintuitive to the goals of the organization, the goals of the team, the goals of even an individual, I was allowing those things to happen and trying to passive aggressively alter it, which is the definition of President Eisenhower's his definition of leadership, right? Is somewhat being passive aggressive. But at a certain point, you need to be confrontational in your goals and confrontational in your beliefs and confrontational in getting people to move in the right direction. And confrontational, I don't want it to sound like a negative term. It's not like fighting with somebody. But at a certain point, when things are happening that are counterintuitive to your goal as a team or organization, it has to be addressed is probably the better way to say it. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't comfortable doing that until several years ago, about the middle of my term, where in practice, something would happen and it's not okay. It's not, one rep is not okay to waste, and it needs to be addressed. It needs to be confronted, using, people talking in a certain way that is counterintuitive to our goals, talking negatively, whatever the situation may be, it needs to be addressed. It needs to be talked about. It needs to be confronted. And I think for me personally, that was kind of the last step of my leadership that I wasn't really able to do until recently, because it's not comfortable. It's not my natural comfort zone to address people in this manner. But I never felt like I could really become a true, like, really comfortable calling myself even a leader until I was able to do those things. And I wasn't able to do it until it was slapped in my face and say, you're not a fucking leader. You can't even do this in this situation. How could you call yourself a leader when you allow these things to happen? And he was 100% right. And it completely changed my professional life, but also my personal life. And you can take that in any way. I firmly believe I have had relationship issues before Lisa, because I allowed things to happen that I didn't address. You know, there's at a certain point, you have to, if you have goals and you're passionate about something, you're going to have to address something you don't like. And it might be an uncomfortable scenario, but ultimately it will propel you faster or better towards your goal. And so I would argue that, sure, I might have been a leader from 14 to 25, whether it's by my definition, stage 1, stage 2. But I feel much more comfortable in my skin as a leader now, being able to confront things that I don't like, that I've never been able to do before. So to kind of tie a bow on this, I completely agree with President Eisenhower's definition. But at a certain point, when there's not like-mindedness, or there's not the consistency that you would want, or there's not the absolute performance that you expect out of yourself or your peers, there has to be some sort of addressing of these things in a positive, healthy way. It doesn't have to be negative. But until you're able to do that, I think that's the final tier of being a leader, in my opinion, which I was never able to do.
Interesting that you say that. And I'm not going any direction with this, but so one thing I struggle with is I feel like I'm too complicated. And now part of that's just part of that's just because like I've always, you and me, I've always kind of been a little blunt.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of learned like where I'm at in my professional career. Like if I notice something, like I address it immediately. Um, if I hear something, I address it immediately. I try to address everything like immediately. Sometimes I have a knee jerk reaction, like, "Hey, get that asshole up here." Like I'll talk to him. Some of that, I just gotta let some of my subordinate leaders handle. But I like you. I've kind of I've kind of grown into my own skin as a leader, and I've seen kind of like you have. I've seen the repercussions of being too passive. Hey,
Yep.
because sometimes if you're too passive, that can that can be mistaken as like a weakness. Like don't I try not to mistake people's kindness for weakness. But if you ask, hey man, like can you go ahead and get that done for me by like next Friday? Like, okay, yeah, and then it doesn't get done. But if you would have said, hey, get that shit done by Friday
Mm-hmm.
or else. I mean, that's not really like, but I'm just a small example. But you know, but I was, I try not to like curse. I try not to get like really like super animated about things.
Mm-hmm.
And the senior non-commissioned officer in my organization, he said to me one day, because I had this struggle like with I don't want to curse, like, I don't want people to think I'm a bad guy, and like it's kind of this little internal struggle that I have. And he looked at me and not trying to go a religious direction with this. He looked at me and he goes, even King David probably didn't command his armies of Israel with kind words. And I kind of said to myself, I was like, you know what? I was like, that's probably true. So it just I just thought of that when you were saying that, like, there's a time to crank it up, and there's a time to back off too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes you just got to put your arm around a guy and be like, hey man, like we're gonna get through this.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's other times you just need to crank it up and be like, all right, like I'm gonna address this right now. I'm gonna be in your face about it, and how that person responds or how that team responds is gonna
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna cause them to grow.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in my
Um,
my experience, and it's just my natural way of doing things, I rarely get that animated about anything, um, especially in a negative light. But even positive, I'm not an overly celebratory guy. I try to keep an even
yeah,
keel because I tend to play
yeah,
better when I'm that way, and I think I tend to lead better. Um, but it's just 100% constant feedback on my expectation of my teammates and myself and the coaching
yeah,
staff. And
yeah. That's a
it's
big part.
it doesn't always have to be yelling or something big, but it's like if something's done that I don't like, it's not like, oh, that'll never happen in a game, or he won't do that again, or whatever. It's addressed now, like, hey, I expect you to never do that ever again, or and when this happens, I expect you to do this 100% of the time, or when I make this call and this happens, this is the expectation of you guys every single time, just like it's the expectation of myself to operate at a full level, as near to perfection as possible. So it's almost like over communication about expectation, in my opinion. And very rarely, I think, when you do that, especially in practice and non-stressful scenarios, then in stressful scenarios you're on the same page, and that animation of trying to fix or correct in game or in a stressful scenario is avoided. So I can only think where I've really, maybe once in my Raiders career, I became animated with a teammate of mine because we weren't on the same page. But even feedback is a form of addressing, is a form of confrontation, and again, I don't want confrontation to be shed in a negative light where you have to get in somebody's
Yeah,
face or be animated. It's more so like, I'll tell receivers all the time, like, hey, my expectation of you is that you never ever do that again. like never
yeah,
ever. Or if that happens, I expect you to 100% always do this, and that's when you'll get the ball. If you don't do it, you won't get the ball. So it's a positive thing. But it's that feedback and that constant communication of expectations or execution in whatever situations that's thrown at us at practice. And even that's on the field confrontation, and off the field when it's like when you hear something negative, or you hear something you don't like, or you hear something counterintuitive to your goals, it's like, hey, why'd you say that? Like, what are you thinking? Where's your head at?
Yeah.
Why would this be on your mind?
He's
Why would you
addressed
verbalize that?
immediately.
Yeah, it's just addressed, and it doesn't. Again, rarely is it a scenario where I get animated, but in the past, like at Jewel, particularly, it would be nothing I can do about it, or I'd be overly passive, and I kind of sometimes
What makes you feel shitty looking back on it?
Well, it just makes you feel that you didn't do everything in your power to be successful, which I don't want to do anymore. Because again, it doesn't have to cause you can be confrontational without it causing confrontation. It's just addressing something to make sure, like you said, you don't want to word sheep, but all the teammates, all your people are moving in the same direction.
Yeah.
And so it was really interesting to think about it. And again, sometimes you just got to be slapped in the face with it, because it's like, you think you're a good leader, you think you're good at something, and it takes an outside source to kind of go, no, Sean, that's bullshit. You're a bad leader, or you're not the leader that you think you are. And then you kind of reevaluate, and you're like, oh shit, this guy's right. I'm not doing the things I should be doing. I'm not actually leading the way I thought I would. And after thinking about it, I think those are the three things that I would say you should look for is talent with people, talent in what you do, talent in your craft, consistently performing the craft so people trust you, because there's been zero leaders in this world where people don't trust. They go hand in hand. You can't not trust a guy and he's your leader. It doesn't work that way. So you have to consistently do whatever it is that you're doing at a high level for people to trust you to do that thing, in whatever field of work or life you're in. And then being able to address things that are counterintuitive, I think is if I had to break down what my personal journey as a leader, that would be it.
Well, in closing, there's one more quote that I wanted to share, and it's a quote from Alexander the Great, but it kind of goes with what we said. It says, I'm not afraid of an army of lions led by a sheep. I am afraid of an army of sheep led by a lion. And I think you're talking about another leadership quote. That's one that I think of often. But I think that wraps it up.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a quote.
Thank you for being on your show.
Thanks. Yeah. I have a quote to kind of wrap it up as well. I like yours a lot, and I'm going to keep it. But I think the thing, for any leadership person in a leadership position, or a leader in general, I think a quote to live and die by, that I actually learned from Mark Hay, believe it or not. Shout out Mark Hay. Is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So if you're not passionate about what you're doing, and you're not passionate about the people that you're doing it with, and genuinely care about them and their needs and who they are as people, not just what you need them for, they're not tools, they're people, then you're not going to get anywhere in a leader, in my opinion. And so that's something that I really hold near and dear, and I remind myself often, and to this day has done me very well in my profession, and where I am with the organization that I'm in. Being in a leadership position, it's people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So Patrick, thank you for hosting my show. It's been awesome. We need to talk about your microphone scenario though, and get you a better brand maybe, because
Can you not hear me?
I can hear you, but you've sounded better in the past. So it's still work in progress.
I don't want to be on your show anymore.
Good. This is the first show. This is the first show that we haven't naturally come to a new segue, so we have to talk about what we're going to do for future Captain to Captain series. But as always, yeah, absolutely. I think the next Captain to Captain, if you're okay with this, would be just a classic interview of me to you, because I think people like you would be very interesting for people that I live with and around.
I gotta censor the questions first. I don't want, there's certain things that I don't want mom and dad to know quite yet.
Okay. Maybe the history of your tattoos since you're donning those.
Stop. Okay, maybe, whatever.
Okay.
I thought you were going in a different direction.
No, come on now.
Goodbye.
All right, bye. Hold on.